Welcome to Trashmagination, a podcast about reimagining trash. I'm Carla Brown. Today's episode is about creative reuse of leather. Whenever I see a leather couch in the trash, I feel like I should go remove all that leather and creatively reuse it in many projects. Since I already have too many projects, I haven't done that, but lots of other artists do. So I'm going to talk about artists who work with leather scraps, leather belts, leather jackets, leather gloves, and recycled cowboy boots. At the end, I'll talk about people who are creatively reusing other materials to make leather alternatives, which is also sometimes called vegan leather, and I'll mention some projects that you can do at home where you creatively reuse leather. Leather is a wonderful material in many ways because it lasts for such a long time. However, it has many environmental challenges. First, raising the animals has a large carbon footprint. Cows drink a lot of water as well. And then the chemicals used to process or tan the leather are really terrible for the environment. And in many places around the world, the people who do this work are not well protected from those chemicals, neither those working with the leather nor those who live nearby and drink the water. Leather is also not biodegradable once it's made due to the methods used in creating it. Given that leather production makes so much pollution, it makes sense that we would want to creatively reuse the leather that we already have. The first type of creative reuse I'll talk about is when people use up scraps. The scraps might come from factories where leather products are being made, or it might come from that leather couch on the curb that you might strip. There are lots of scraps produced when making leather products because leather is made from skin from a real animal, which has imperfections, and there will be sections that will be discarded as the items are manufactured. Also, when you're making leather clothing, you will create scraps because items are cut out on a pattern. Many artists work with leather scraps, so let me tell you about a few. Elvis & Cressy is a company in the United Kingdom that makes bags and rugs from many types of recycled materials. The company started when the founders learned that all the damaged, decommissioned fire hoses in London were going to landfill. They were difficult to recycle because they were made from a composite material, meaning they were not all made from something like rubber. They wanted to reuse this material because it had been involved in so many heroic deeds. So they have since rescued hundreds of tons of material. They also give away half of their profits. In addition to recycling fire hoses, Elvis & Cressy now work with a variety of other waste materials. In terms of leather scraps, they gather leather scraps and they make them into luxury items. One of the founders of Elvis & Cressy said in an interview that her grandmother used to say, "If you are capable, you are responsible." And I just love that phrase. So as I said, there are many artists who work with scraps to produce beautiful things, and I would recommend you check out the Pinterest board for this episode where you can see some of those designs. Next, let's talk about creative reuse of leather belts. A popular way to do this is to make bracelets. Many artists on Etsy make these bracelets and they embellish them with little metal decorations or recycled costume jewelry. Usually these bracelets will attach to your wrist with snaps. Danny Seo is a creative reuse artist who usually makes home decor items from recycled materials, and he makes labels for glass bottles from recycled leather belts. He cuts the belt so it fits snugly around the bottle, and then he punches a label into the leather with a leather punch. Sadie Season Goods also makes labels for glass jars from recycled leather belts, but she doesn't wrap them around the jar. She punches holes into the belts and inserts rivets, and then she hangs the labels from a chain around the neck of the bottle. Rachel Denny makes animal sculptures from recycled materials. She made a sculpture of a long-horned cow from leather belts. You can hear an interview with Rachel on the podcast called The Jealous Curator. Many people like to do painting on recycled leather gloves. There are many examples of such gloves for sale on Etsy. One artist who takes this to the next level is Bunny Reese, who has a series called Cosmic Animal Gloves. She lays the gloves side by side, and then she can play with symmetry in the painting across the two gloves. Often, the eyes of her cosmic animals are painted on the thumbs of the gloves. For our next item, I was surprised to learn that artists creatively reuse leather cowboy boots to make purses. First, they cut off the soles of the boots and they open up the back along the back seam, and then they sew the boots back to back so the toes are sticking out. Then they tuck in the toes and they add a new base. The last step is to add a strap at the top. Some people also make a wine tote from a single cowboy boot. Episode 55 of Trashmagination was about creative reuse of denim jeans, and on many brands of jeans there is a rectangular label made from leather. So here are some cool ways that people have creatively reused those labels when they're upcycling jeans. The artist from Made or Remade does more than reuse the denim from the jeans. He also carefully removes all the thread for reuse. And that is really painstaking work. That is dedication. Most denim artists I know just cut off the seams and toss that part of the jeans. He also reuses all the waistbands to make waistband quilts. And finally, he also reuses the leather labels. First, he sews them into thimbles, which I think is a genius idea. And second, he sometimes uses the labels to actually label his quilt by using a wood burner to write the information into the leather label. Another way that people reuse those leather labels is to sew them together into a leather rug. These are actually so commonly available that you can buy them even in places like Amazon or Overstock.com. Next, I'll talk about artists who creatively reuse leather jackets and pants, or trousers for those who are listening in the United Kingdom. Many artists do this, but I'll mention two who I follow on social media. The first company is called Hildur to John, and it's located in Sweden. She makes beautiful throw pillows from many small circular leather scraps that she cuts from recycled jackets. The name Hildur to John is named after the artist's grandparents, who were Hildur and John. And in addition to cushions, she makes many other very adorable products, such as small branches with leather leaves, pine cone ornaments, headphone holders, bow ties, and rugs. Ali Ashton upcycles all types of leather. I first heard about her work when she made a bag from a protective leather suit that had been worn by a motorcycle racer who was in an accident, and his suit saved his life. So she made him a commemorative bag from this suit. Ali's company is called Ali Bond Bespoke, and her website shows her many leather reuse projects. She started working with leather with one leather jacket after watching a Martha Stewart video, and then her acquaintances started asking her to make them items from sentimental leather clothing. As I mentioned at the start of this episode, producing leather is quite damaging to the environment in many ways, and that's why many inventors and entrepreneurs are seeking leather alternatives. In episode 67, I talked about the creative reuse of inner tubes. Sometimes people use recycled inner tubes to make items like bags as a replacement for leather. I also mentioned Elvis and Cressy at the start of this episode, who use recycled fire hoses instead of leather. But another alternative to cow-based leather is to grow it. There is a product called Deserto, which is made from cactus. This company was started by Adrian, who worked with leather in the auto industry, and Marte, who worked with leather in the fashion industry. They saw a lot of waste in both industries. Since they lived in Mexico, they have access to a lot of cactus. Unlike cows, cactus don't require a lot of water. Cactus absorb carbon dioxide instead of emitting methane. They don't even have to kill the plant to make the leather. They just trim some of the mature leaves and then the plant keeps growing. They joked that it's like giving the plant a haircut. It costs about the same to produce this type of cactus leather as it does to make animal leather, and it can be made in any color. Another way to grow leather is to make it from mycelium or fungus. I found 2 companies working on that option, Bolt Threads in California and Ecovative Design in New York. Mycelium can be grown in shapes to replace polystyrene packaging, which I mentioned in episode 105, or it can also be pounded to make something like leather. It takes relatively little water to grow the mycelium compared with the water use of cows. So let's finish today's episode with some creative reuse activities that you can do at home to upcycle your leather. For the simplest leather craft project, I might suggest making luggage tags where you punch in your information using leather punches. You can also make a leather sling to hang up your plant. You just cut out a circle of leather, punch 4 rivets around the edges, add rope, and then you can hang your plant in this pouch. You can make a journal or book from leather scraps. Sadie Season Goods made a tiny book that you wear around your neck like a pendant. She took pages from an old book that was falling apart. She cut them into very small pages, only a few inches wide, and then she cut a rectangle of leather as the book cover. She punched a hole through everything and she made this tiny, adorable book. You can also make a full-sized book for a journal using many tutorials online. A simple sewing project would be to make a leather throw pillow, which adds the right color tones and textures for a more rustic home decor. And for a more ambitious but very satisfying project, you could make your own shoes. Sharon Raymond has a blog called Simple Shoemaking, where she teaches people how to make shoes from salvaged leather. All of her designs avoid using toxic shoe cements. Thank you for listening. Please let me know if you have ever creatively reused leather at trashmagination@gmail.com. And be sure to share this episode with any of your friends who might be interested in creatively reusing leather. Also, I would really love it if you would leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, may you see recycled leather as a source of art in your life.